sitting in front of all of the data from the last 12 months, Kent County, Sussex County, Newcastle County. You have all of the state. We know that we had less sales compared to last year and the year before. And that the price point ended up being higher than it was last year. So with less sales and a higher price point, where does that put your clients at right now? What do the conversations look like?
It's hard.
For who?
For the buyers.
That's fair.
Specifically for buyers. And I mean, honestly, even for sellers too, because at the same time, like I'm sure there's a lot of sellers that want to sell, you know, but with interest rates and the home prices being so high, they don't want to sell and then have a harder time finding a home that fits all of their needs, paying an even more crazier mortgage payment than what they have now.
Yeah, because even if you get in at the 6.5% right now, if you had locked in a 2.5%, 3% interest rate, you're looking at possibly $1,000 difference between what you're paying now and what you would pay in the next house, even if you made a parallel move.
Yep.
Which unfortunately is a different house now. Because the person who bought that home in 2020, I mean, that $250,000 house is now worth like $400,000.
Yep.
Is that what your clients are running more into is, I want home prices to come down to a realistic level?
Yeah.
What is your answer to that?
It's hard, you know, because what can you say? I would love for the home prices to come down because they need to come down. It's not sustainable where it's at now.
You don't think it's sustainable?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I really don't.
I hear you.
I mean, it's so hard to afford a home. I mean, a lot of my buyers right now are first-time home buyers, and some of which are even single, and they can't afford. There's no way, even with the best job, to even get into a home.
Well, 84% of Americans cannot afford the median house individually. So you're only talking about 16% of the population that could by themselves afford a house, which, yeah, classically you go to college, you get married, and then you get your house, whatever. You don't have to be married, but the dual income, even at this moment, you're still really, really tight when you think about all things included. God forbid you have a kid and you got childcare expenses.
Yep. I actually just had this conversation with Tyler the other day. I mean, we got into a home, but we also have childcare, and we so badly want another kid. And we're just like, how is it even possible at the end of the day to have multiple kids and a home? I mean, for that sake, I feel rich in a sense because it's hard right now. Super hard.
That's a tough one. What do you do there? You just not have the family you want just because, I mean,
I know
finances are what they are, but like
you make it work at the end of the day, but that's so sad that we're in that situation where you're like, well, you know, but that's a conversation that happens all the time. You know, it's the people that don't have kids that could afford the home, or and even then it's a hard situation. It just really just depends on your wants and wishes and what you can squeeze out of it at the end of the day. But
yeah. And then there's the people that we had this conversation, I think, on Monday at our team meeting, is the amount of people that are in relationships and staying in those relationships for financial reasons.
Yep.
I don't remember really a time where that was happening as often as it's more than likely happening right now. Are you seeing sellers that aren't sellers that are in that scenario?
I feel like it's one of those things like a sit and wait. Everyone just wants to sit and wait between buyers and sellers.
But if y'all wanted to leave the person that I'm with, why wouldn't I? Like, how could the real estate market affect that?
It's one of those things. If I was ever in that situation where I felt stuck in my relationship and wanted a way out, finances would be the top of mind. Like, it's scary to be on your own and not know. But
well, it's
at the end of the day, if it's meant to be, like, you can only afford your bills for so long. You can only put up with that person for so long. Like, there's going to be a break where you're like, enough's enough, and you're going to make it work. And it's just finding out what that looks like at the end of the day.
Well, through 2023, where have you been working the most? What's like the hottest spots in Delaware for you and your clients?
So normally I focus all of mine off of Kent County.
Okay.
So I have a lot of Newcastle buyers that are interested in Newcastle, but they're just finding it so difficult to get in because everyone's wanting to get in. The price points of affordability is just really hard. They have to go back and forth. But I mean, I always tend to work more in Kent County. And I feel like if you're wanting a happy medium, Kent County is one where the price points, you get a little bit more of a home, a little bit more land for the same price, if not better, compared to Sussex and Newcastle. So that's typically where I work and prefer.
And just going through the numbers, like in turn, 2,370 homes sold in Kent County last year. That's not a lot of homes. 2,370 is super low in comparison to not last year. Last year, we still saw a slightly lower number, but we've never really been below 3,000 a year up until last year, and then drastically down close to getting into the teens of 1,900 homes for the entire year. The other part that comes with that is the fact that price points go up. Average sold median December opening up this year, December ending last year was at 290,000, and now we're at 325,000. So you look at that, okay, that's a 35 grand difference. That's a 10% increase for Kent County, all while there's not many homes that are hitting the market. I view that as Kent County is going to keep growing in value, and the people that are sitting on the sideline, whether purposefully or non-purposefully, like some people can't afford it and some people simply can't, are going to potentially miss out. I don't know why I said potentially like that. Potentially are going to potentially miss out on the next equity spike, which sucks because, as you said, 84% of people can't do it anyway. So it's not like they're purposely missing out. They just can't. Do you see another window that opens up? Like, let's play devil's advocate.
Okay.
Let's imagine rates do go down by the summer to 5%. All right, 5.1%. That may not sound like a crazy number, but in the macro across America, that's unlocking like close to 5 million home buyers. More people qualify for a home. And not only that, more homeowners who have that low interest rate, who have been locked up in that home for 2.5 years with really no option of being able to move for a lot, now see the light and are like, okay, I can move. 5's not as good as 3, but it's best. It's the best I'm going to get right now. I can move. And now you have all these buyers with cash and equity from the home they're selling, driving up price points, and once again, moving equity, skyrocket the equity for homeowners, and first-time home buyers are left at the wayside. Like, is there another window that opens up where first-time home buyers have an ample opportunity to buy a home when interest rates get low? Or do you think sellers immediately jump in and just take over, and people with cash take over, investors take over, and they never get a shot?
I feel like they know. I'll be quite honest. I don't see them having a shot.
Like a fair advantage opportunity. Like,
No, I don't.
that their chances don't really shift. Though it becomes, if the average mortgage payment gets to the point where someone could sell their home, move into that home, and it's not too drastic of a difference between what they have and then what they're moving into, and they can afford it, that seller is going to beat your offer on that same home every time because they're going to have better financing. They have way more cash, and they have this 150 grand in equity, 200 grand in equity in their home that they're just going to scoot over to this home.
Yeah.
So they have a better pre-approval. It's stuck. It's a stuck situation.
It's really unfair. And I feel like all the buyers that I've had this year, for the most part, were first-time home buyers. But I will say, with that being said, they all had cash. They all had some sort of...
How much cash?
5 to 10 grand at least.
That's not a ton.
And they had better credit scores.
How high a credit score?
680 or higher.
680 or higher.
So a lot of my buyers had like a 710, 730 or higher.
Yeah. What kind of income are they making?
They're making at least...
Household-wise,
I would say 6 to 7 grand
per month. Got it. So we're looking at 80 grand, 85 grand a year. Okay. So 85 grand a year, 680 plus credit score, and at least 5 to 10 grand in savings.
At least.
And then
even then
job-wise, we're secure too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even then it was still a little challenging, but we made it through. But the ones that don't have any type of money, whether they're pulling out of their 401k or they're asking gifts for family, they don't have anything, their credit's on the lower end. I mean, we're just trying to make it. They're the ones we can't find home.
The amount of people that are utilizing credit cards for utility bills right now and car payments and all of these things that are necessities in life just to make it by, you can't expect that same person to have 10 grand sitting in a bank account.
Of course not.
Or else they wouldn't be using the credit cards.
I wouldn't even have it. I mean, honestly, it's a struggle. But then I also, like, in a crappier version, like, I don't know, I'll play devil's advocate on this one. I had to sacrifice a lot in my home life, my personal life. I always wanted to go out and eat and hang out with friends and do this and the other.
Yeah.
I wanted a home.
Yeah.
So it was a temporary sacrifice that I had to give up. And it's just temporary.
Yeah.
But it was one of those things, I had to give up my Starbucks every single day.
Yeah.
And then it became once a month, I got a little treat for myself. But
Sure.
it was the little things just in that sense, or going to Wawa. Like my husband's a contractor. He goes to Wawa every day.
Yeah,
Like
that's one too. If you cut out the $40, $50 spent a day.
It adds up quick.
Absolutely. Well, if you look at it, I think it's very easy to say that a lot of people can be spending $40 to $60 a day simply on a stop at a convenience store and a DoorDash.
Yeah.
And that's so much more common today. And
I'm guilty.
And if you stack that $60 up against 30 days, that's $1,800.
Yeah.
You times that by 12 for the year, and you actually do have a down payment for a house.
Literally.
So you hear all these, don't get your coffee, and you could maybe stop getting Starbucks and DoorDash and soda and everything. And
it's
maybe you can buy a house.
Thing to say, but when you want something so bad, you
do have to make the sacrifices.
Yeah.
And our parents are right. They did make their sacrifices before they bought their $80,000 house.
Yeah, my dad's house was $75,000 and it's now easily worth oh my gosh, almost $400,000.
Well, my dad's property just got reassessed. Now they bought it at like $120,000, but it was assessed at like $90,000. Just got reassessed. Market value is like $340,000. So yes, taxes are going to go up, but that value difference is not something that, frankly, any of us probably have the opportunity to experience. And what sucks is everyone who doesn't own a home not only had been hearing about this and watching their grandparents with their beach property they bought for $100,000, now it's worth $1.2 million, then got to see it happen again right in front of them from 2020 to 2023, had to sit there and fucking watch. And that sucks because you knew, okay, my parents did it with equity, my brother did it with equity, and now they're homeowners. Now they're doing it. I'll get a home one day, dream of home ownership, white picket fence, 2.5 kids, whatever. And now you just have to watch as homeownership's opportunity is ripped from you once again, and all these other people are now getting to say the same thing. Oh, well, I bought my house for X, and now it's worth Y, and my life's completely different. Yeah. That sucks.
Well, it's like one of those things, like we're at the age group, we're in our late 20s, mid 30s, and you go to college and you work so hard and you have these degrees.
What's a degree? What's a degree worth now?
Just to still not be able to afford a home.
One of my most controversial posts I put out, and it was still like 2.5 years ago, is when I said connections will open way more doors than a diploma ever will.
So true.
And I got a ton of flack on that one. And I stood by it then. I stood by it before then. I stand by it now. I think it's even more true now.
Yeah.
And it's to your exact point, a degree doesn't even set you up in any type of situation any better than a non-college graduate to getting closer to home ownership at the very least.
Yep.
I can't speak to job. I want my doctor to have a degree. If I need to go to court over something, I want my attorney to have a framed up degree in his office. But, if your aspiration is to do what we're doing, do art, a slew of things, trade work, there's a lot of money out there to be made, and maybe some sacrifices got to be made. But for the most part, and really speaking, the vast majority are struggling. The vast majority are failing to make payments on things. The vast majority, or I won't say that, the vast majority are living paycheck to paycheck. It is over 50% are living paycheck to paycheck. They didn't get one of their 2-week checks, and they will not be able to pay something. That's terrifying. And the amount of people using their credit cards to pay those things is currently terrifying. And we're over $1 trillion now in credit card debt. That's terrifying. We've never done that before. So you line all those things up with everything's more expensive, living costs more, and now getting a shelter, getting a home is now not something that is accessible to me. I'm a 25-year-old getting out of college and I still don't know where I'm going to rent, still don't know how I'm going to buy. I understand completely why that person's staring up at the government and saying,
help.
Please, like, what are you doing? Why am I paying these taxes? What is this doing?
Yeah.
So I get it. But let's talk about the homeowner. Let's talk about the other side of the spectrum, because there's a little bit of, grass is greener. Oh my God, I wish I owned a home. But there's a lot of people, and this is my most frequent conversation right now with a client, is the homeowner who intended on buying the starter home 4 or 5 years ago and is now still in that starter home and can't move out because they have equity. They probably have $100,000 in equity, but because they're only paying $800, $900, $1,200 a month, they can't fathom nor afford and get pre-approved for. They literally cannot afford the next $2,800 payment that's lined up for them at the 4-bedroom home they need for the 3 kids they've now had in their townhome. And I'm not having that specific, scenario every single time, but, that's a more and more common conversation is I feel stuck when I need to be able to relocate for a job, upgrade for the family, move out because of a separation. And that's happening more and more where people are like, what do I do? So what do you say to that homeowner that's sitting there like, what do I do?
That is a hard one.
It's my opinion, there's just really only three things you can do. One, you sit there and you wait to a point where you actually can't afford it, or make those sacrifices to get yourself to the point where you can afford to be able to sell and buy the next property that you need. And
Right.
maybe that next property isn't the forever home, it's the next step home. And it just gives you more opportunity to either like I said, relocate, do what you need to do with your family because it's growing. The second option, I think this is becoming more and more common, is to keep the property, rent it out, and thus wiping the debt away from your debt to income. And that makes them then able to afford the next property.
That's fair.
That's becoming more popular, but people don't want to be landlords every day. So more and more people are becoming accidental landlords.
Yeah.
The third, and man, I see this as a growing to be the most popular one in 2024, is people that are just selling and then going to rent or going to live with family and figuring something out because they need that equity. I got to pay off the credit cards. I got to pay off the car. I got to get this student debt out from under me. Like I'm drowning. Mm-hmm. And I know that if I sell this home now, it's probably going to be worth more in 5 years. But frankly, I can't see 5 weeks from now, nevertheless 5 years from now. Yeah. So I need to go ahead and sell this property. I don't see that happening as much right now. But that's, I think, the third option for that homeowner that feels stuck and is going to become a more popular option.
I was about to say, I feel like we're going to see that a lot more often, slowly, because people can barely make their bills, but it's going to be one of those things where you can only do that for so long.
Go ahead.
And if it was me at the end of the day, like trying to sell my home, or I didn't want to sell my home. No one wants to sell their home if they're pinching pennies and they love the home.
Of course.
But if that was my option, I would 100% sell it, get all that equity, pay everything off, and just rent until I can get everything better.
And then there comes the rental market, which is just a beautiful market.
And that's another thing. Like, it's so hard. And even for people who can't afford a home, like they're struggling to even just afford their security deposit and first month's rent. But I feel like the sellers, that are trying to sell, they would be the first ones in because they have all this money. They have the cash on hand to be able to just get in.
Well, let's talk about renting versus owning. We just said you need $5,000 to $10,000 to realistically even enter the consideration of being a first-time home buyer in Delaware's market specifically. But like you just said, you talk first and last month's rent and a security deposit. If you're getting a $2,300 house or a per month rental house, that's $6,900. First and last month's security deposit. God forbid you have a pet deposit.
Yeah.
I mean, that's about the same amount you need to buy a house.
Yeah.
So what's the difference?
And then it's going right into your pockets at the end of the day. That's your home. You're not spending that on anyone else or anyone's landlord telling you what you can or can't do.
If you own the home. Yeah. If you rent it, all that money's just going to La La Land. It's going to limbo. It's going, like you said, to the landlord's pockets, which sucks.